Good morning. Welcome to the Superintendent Community Update for Friday, January 29th, 2021. I'd like to start out with, again, our shout outs and accolades. First, breaking earlier this week, it may have been the end of last week, but I think it was earlier this week. Really, congratulations to an alumni class of 1986, Rear Admiral Susan Ortega, who has been named the Acting Surgeon General of the United States. Really a great honor. Susan and I went to high school together, along with many other teachers and employees here in the Baltimore School District from that class of 1986. And we could not be more proud of Susan. This accomplishment, whether it's just a temporary while the next Surgeon General is appointed, but really Susan has been doing just great work for the United States for such a very, very long time, and we are just so proud of her. My next shout out is just thoughts and prayers. Just an employee, a friend, Donnie Matthews over in the bus garage, one of our mechanics, is on the beginning of just what will be a difficult journey. Talked to Donnie yesterday, and just thoughts and prayers to him. You may or may not know we operate our own bus company per se, our own transportation department. We have our own mechanic bays. We have 4 mechanics there, Donnie being one of them. And so I've said that probably before, even last spring when I delivered a message from the garage. If you really need a dose of maybe reality or just back to basics, I go over to the garage and sit down with those guys. And I've not done that much this year, kind of giving them their space because of COVID, but I miss seeing them and being able to talk with them about that aspect of our operations as well. So Donnie, thoughts and prayers with you, buddy. Hope to talk to you soon. Next shout out really goes to our school principals and the work that they have been doing in the schools, really thinking of everything from the first moment the children will come on campus, whether that be in a car or on a bus, to the last moment that they leave campus, whether that be in a car or on a bus. And just the exhaustive nature of the planning needed to maintain children being in school live and in person. The amount of planning needed to continue to serve those who are remote. The only way we stay open, even in the way that we are built now at about 80% capacity, is to ensure that we're serving the needs of those who have chosen to stay off of campus for any reason, but really trying to be responsive to them. The principals are doing that work, and it's exhaustive. Just making sure the kids can eat lunch, that they have a safe space to eat lunch, they can get on and off buses, in and out of the building to cars, all of those operational things, just to ensure children are back and forth to classrooms, and it really can be, done safely. And my last shout out is to Aaron Chalosky. Last week, my omission, I was talking about being up in the high school gymnasium and talking to some of the teachers up there. Erin walked right past. I said hello to her. I did not give her a shout out. Erin, here's your shout out. And so hope you're having a great day today as well. Our current school learning model, just some updates. I want to start by reviewing the current week's progress and setbacks. We're having a few setbacks, and the concern I have with those is they're fixable. They're definitely fixable. We're 2 weeks into our journey. Classrooms and routines that the principals have really helped shepherd. I'm just thinking about the work in the classroom, keeping distances, the routines that are being taught, and just, again, starting from the very beginning. It's almost like a new first day of school that we've had at the elementary, and then the 6th through 8th this past week. And then as we move forward with our high school students, it really is teaching all of the routines, maybe to a level that we really have not thought about before. And that's really important. We just cannot, especially once we get to the high school level, we just can't hand them their schedule and say, okay, have at it. We have to really employ some of those elementary schedule and elementary processes and procedures into the high school to be successful. Cafeteria and food service going quite well. We know that there are just some limited pickup points for those who are remote learners, just due to simply a sheer human resources and capacities that we have. As we serve more and more children in the schools, the employee groups that we have are stretched thinner and thinner. And so we're really trying to do what we can in moving all of those pickup points to Wednesdays. It's going quite well. I was talking to the ladies at the high school the other day and just so impressed with the work that they're doing, and the amount of food that's going out is really just incredible. Car ridership continues to be a bit of a challenge, and not in the sense that it's just difficult to get people in and off of campus. The lines are long, and we appreciate your patience, trying to do as much as we can, as quickly as we can. I see it most days here in the afternoon. Morning seems to go a little smoother, just because the nature of when people are coming. I know the schools are trying to communicate some arrival windows and trying to divide folks up into different windows of time, maybe like earlier arrivals and then a later arrival group. What we can't do is block the entire community where we can't get folks in and out of their own driveways or the streets, but really more importantly, we can't block access for emergency vehicles should that have to be the case as well. Bus ridership is a concern, and the concern I have are the numbers. We built a model for our in-person program around 80%, and we're at capacity, but bus ridership numbers are really high. In some cases, there are 3 children in a seat, mostly at the younger level, but some at the middle school, and that's crowded. There are at least 2 in a seat, so we need to continue to work with the garage and help figure out solutions to bring those numbers down. They're just very, very large, and I'm not satisfied with where they are. Mr. Deeney, Mr. Tompkins, Ms. Misla, Ms. Brady over at the garage, the drivers have been just doing a fantastic job, but the numbers are just high, and we have to look at that. I do have a concern about student behavior and masking while on the bus. And let me be crystal clear about this. Bus ridership is a privilege. In-person attendance is a privilege. If we are unable to maintain behaviors on the bus ridership will not. Please let me repeat that. Bus ridership will not continue. If we have children waiting for those seats because there are not seats available, then we are not going to have children using those seats if they can't behave while they are using them. It's pretty crystal clear. We have a legal, viable, maybe not equal, at-home remote learning program that children can participate in. So if we can't get to school safely, if we can't follow the things that need to be followed in the procedures and the policies, then you can stay at home. And that may sound cold or a little harsh, but our ability to stay open is dependent on things like that. And so bus ridership is being examined. We had a conversation and a conference call with all the principals this week. There will be opportunities for reminders given. Principals are on buses in the afternoon talking to children about what's expected. But the tolerance level will be short. There'll be a reminder that may be an after-school detention, a lunchtime detention, some other reminder, maybe discipline on the front end. But a second opportunity for reminder, it will result in movement to removal from the bus. And then students can participate from home, or parents can drive their children to school if that is then an option. But again, bus ridership is probably my number one area of concern right now because of the crowdedness. Kids need to be in seats facing forward, masks on, and just get home. Anything less than that or more than that is unacceptable, and we'll be responding. Remember, the guiding philosophy that we're trying to follow is that our ability to move forward each week depends on the week that we're in and the success of the past week. And this week, in some ways, has not been very successful. And here's why. Communication is a concern. And I'm not going to identify the building, but we are having problems with communication. Twice this week, we are receiving reports 6 and 7 days later of parents or children at home in the testing protocol who have tested positive Maybe parents have tested positive and children have still been coming to school. These are things that are elementary in the essence of how we are going to be able to stay open. If you're in the testing protocol, if you've tested positive in a typical household, any one of those household members most likely will be a close contact. They've got to stay home. Right now, with the testing limits that happen in Allegheny County, if parents are going to be are testing positive, most likely the children, symptomatic or asymptomatic, are going to be presumed positive. And we've had cases where now that's happened. Parents are testing positive. They're still sending children to school, symptomatic or asymptomatic. It turns out later that they're either testing positive or they're being presumed positive. And now we're contact tracing, closing down classrooms, we're quarantining. And this is all preventable. These aren't just words at the end of the message I say about, hey, remember to wear your mask and 6 feet and time and distance. This is real. If we want to stay open as a district for the benefit of 80% of our 4,600 students in person, that we're saying that's important. They're not just words. It has to be actions. It has to be actions every single day. So the communication and testing, it's lacking. It's delayed a week later. It's unacceptable, folks. We've got to do better than that. You've got to review that parent screener tool each day. Talk to your kids about symptoms. If you're testing, if people around kids are testing, or if they've tested positive, you've got to assume that it's going to be a presumed positive unless you have been maintaining 6 feet of distance in your home, wearing a mask in your home, not being around folks for 15 minutes or longer at any given time. In typical households, that's nearly impossible. The next point coming up, the changes in commitment form choices. We called it commitment form for a reason. We've asked people to commit to what learning plan and what transportation model that you're looking for. I realize life situations change. They change for all of us. I understand that. But when we received those initial reports back, we had information that about 80% of our student population wanted to come back to school, and 20% maybe were not satisfied with staying home, but accepted that as an option. So we did our spacing and our visits through the schools based upon the numbers and how that 80% was playing out. We're at maximum capacity. To say that there's no room left at the inn is probably an understatement. So at this point, requests can come into the schools. The schools will be the first line of evaluation of those. 99% of those requests are not going to be granted. There may be exceptions of what the school is working through, but you should expect the answer from the school level and the principal to be no. They will log that in the process. They are logging that on a communication tool that comes to me. We will continue to evaluate those things. If space opens up and we're creating essentially a waiting list, we can work on that. But there's no obligation, or there shouldn't be any expectation that the answer will be yes, because we are full. Talking to the principals, there's not one more seat in the cafeteria. We know that there are no more seats on buses. And while there might be room in a classroom, the classroom isn't the end all be all, and that's not the end of the day. There are so many other elements of what we're trying to put together. The other part is that this is not just Randy Lutz trying to come up with a model that we're winging it. We signed as a district. I signed it, and the board president, Dr. DeChester, has signed an attestation form that said two things. We're going to follow the masking rule with distancing and those things to keep kids safe. And the second thing that we said is that when we have cases in schools, we're going to respond to those things in an appropriate manner. And if we have to close down schools, that we're going to do that. And that's exactly what we will continue to follow. So the true window for possible changes, for those things to occur, really, we're not looking for much change. At the earliest, the third 9 weeks, and as our local numbers continue to change, and with even the potential for masking orders to be softened, or distancing orders to be softened. I know it's even hard for me to say that, but to be closed and to be full, otherwise we would have basically we would have to go back to a hybrid model because we cannot accommodate more children on a 4-day model. Our next steps, February 1st, we have scaffolded the high school rollout. That information went out this week in a video and written message to parents and students. We initially had planned that 9 through 12 would all be back on Monday. There's some lessons learned, and we saw some lessons from 7 through 8, then the K to 6 model rollout over at Harrison, as well as the K to 5 at the other 2 schools. Realizing I know K to 5 does not attend both of those buildings. For us to be successful, we really have to focus on these processes and procedures. That's something that elementary teachers, students do exceptionally well. We're probably less tuned into those things at the high school level. Normally at the high school level, kids show up, we assume that they have a lot more of independence, and we kind of give them their schedule, go about the day, and we don't teach much about that day. How to walk in the hallways, how to get back and forth to a cafeteria, even when the cafeteria now is in the gymnasium. What does that look like? Directional hallways, directional stairwells, that distancing, getting in and out of the building safely. To do those things, we just can't ring a bell and have 1,200 students, because that's what we're at. At 80% of our high school population of 1,500, we're looking at 1,200 students. And to have all those students come back on one day, I think the lessons learned over the past few weeks tell us that that's not the safest way or the most responsible way to get kids back in the building. So we're breaking that in half. February 1st will be 9th and 10th grade coming back to the 4-day model or remaining in the 4-day model. In the remote model. February 8th, grades 11 and 12 in the 4-day model. So February 8th, grades 11 and 12 in the 4-day model, or staying in the remote model. So the rationale for the staggered start, again, teaching the procedures and the processes, avoiding having 1,200 students coming on the same day. In some cases, for the first time, we'll have that many students together in the high school for nearly a year. And so we have to reteach some things, and we just can't leave that to luck or to chance. We've learned from the experience of the K to 5, the 6th grade, and then the 7th and 8th grade rollout that staggered start works. We do that at kindergarten level. Think back in a normal year with the staggered start for kindergarten. Why do we do that for those children? And so it's really to be purposeful and intentional in how to roll out those processes. And acute attention must be given to those mitigation efforts. A frequent question, why 11th and 12th grade at the end, and why not bring them in? 12th graders missing out on their senior year, and it's a week later. It is, I understand that. What rationale has been given to that? I think maybe probably people looking for the answer saying, well, we didn't have any thought about that we didn't think about that we just didn't care about the seniors. Every student wants to be back. Every student wants to be back yesterday. And as soon as we get one grade level back, and if we get back 4 days, then it's when we're going to start back 5 days. And all that's understandable. Kids have missed out on a lot. And we can place value on what grade level should be first or second or last. We looked at things like parking procedures. We looked at things like the Career and Technical Ed Center and rolling out all those different pieces and parts. We talked about just staying really in a progressive manner or a sequential manner. After that conversation was done and looking at all those pieces and the fact that it really comes down to 2 days. We want to continue making progress. And so splitting it in half, everyone needs to be first. I don't want anyone to be last. But the reality of it is that for some of those reasons, we decided to maintain that sequential progress. Question about Steel Center. Remember, Steel Center's schedule will continue to match the high school, any high school, not just Baldwin High School. Steel Center is matching the schedule at the high school. So if the high school's on a hybrid schedule, the attendance down there will be on a hybrid schedule. If it's 4 days or 5 days, there are some schools that are in it on 5, then it's 4 or 5 there. They have made the accommodation that if a child is remote, then they can attend Steel Center, but for the same number of days as far as what the corresponding grade level attends. So if you're a remote child and you want to go to Steel Center to get that hands-on opportunity, then you can go down there, whether it's just your 2 days of the hybrid model, or once we are fully back in 4 days, then it can be those 4 days. But so for beginning on the 1st, next week, we do have some 10th graders that attend Steel Center. So if you're a 10th grader at 10th Steel Center next week, you can go down there 4 days. If you're an 11th, 12th grader attending Steel Center, next week you only attend for 2 days. The following week you'll begin your 4-day rotation. The planning review at Baldwin High School this past week, we conducted classroom walkthroughs of every classroom. That happened on the 27th, on Wednesday. We looked at the busing, we looked at the car riding, classroom layouts. Really, I'm impressed once again with teachers' efforts to make sure spaces are safe, spaces are laid out to obtain 6 feet to the greatest extent possible, and where feasible. And those two words, or those two phrases, being used intentional. 6 feet is really important. There are some spaces, especially when we're looking at some of the labs and some of the furniture that's fixed to the floor. There's some things that we just simply can't move. And then there are other tables where it's not really just an individual student desk, but like a 2-person table, or call it 2-top table. And we're trying to arrange those in certain capacities or certain arrangements where we have greater than 5. We may be a few inches shorter than 6 feet, but greater than 5 feet of distancing side to side, and then again front to back, looking at least 4 and 5 feet that way. But we know that breathing on the back of somebody's head, the studies have been really conclusive that spread's not happening that way. Communication, I'm sorry, last one, cafeteria and alternative spaces. The small gym is being used for a cafeteria, and so that's something very different. I'm just really looking for cooperation from all the students and making sure trash gets in the trash, and folks are doing what they need to do. Staffing for wiping of the tables is limited, so we are committed to wiping all those desktops between every lunch, and that's a real task. That's where the focus needs to be. So hopefully we're not spending a lot of time cleaning up things off the floor that are thrown there purposefully, and we can focus on the tabletops. The communication letters to the families of 9 through 12, they're all coming out, or they most likely came out yesterday, but if not, you should be getting those today. So that letter will be in your email, like we've been doing all through K through 8. It's just one letter, because the busings, if you're a bus rider, bus times have changed, because we're looking at moving some of the bus times up a little bit earlier in the morning. Some of the stop information has changed. So whether you're a 9th and 10th grader coming onto that bus 4 days a week, or you're an 11th and 12th grader being on that bus 2 days a week, everyone needs the same bus information, because that's when the bus will be there. The bus numbers, the bus stops, and the bus times. But again, remember, the rollout is staggered. Even though the letters all coming out this week for all 4 grade levels, the time back 4 days is staggered. Our COVID updates for the community, numbers continue to really move in the right direction. So for Baldwin Borough numbers for this past week, 122 through 129, 54 new cases, and that's compared to 69 new cases last week. 54 new cases out of 115 tests. Last week there were 135 tests. So our positivity rate's down from 51% down to 46%. So again, moving in the right direction by about 5 percentage points. Less cases, less testing, but again, moving in the right direction. Whitehall Borough, 39 new cases out of 121 tests last week. There were 38 new cases out of 100 tests. So of last week, there was a 38% positivity rate. This week, a 32% positivity rate. So more tests, about the same number of positive cases. Locally, good information, good news. At the county level, new cases in Allegheny County, as of yesterday, the daily count was 358 cases. That's down from 425 cases a week ago. The 7-day average of 349 is also down. Last week, 438 was our 7-day average last week. That's also down significantly from the 7-day average from the beginning of the year. 1/1 of 21, our 7-day average was 579 cases. So we're down over, 230 cases of an average down in just a few weeks. So the local efforts are working. We're not out of the woods. As I mentioned about some of our own communication and our own processes to make sure that we know what's happening locally, and within our buildings, we continue to really stress those processes. At the state level, although this information is a week old, we do expect to continue to move in the right direction. When I gave the information last Friday, I indicated that our case counts were down 551 cases from week to week. Well, last Friday afternoon, when the information came out, our cases went down even further. We were down 838 additional cases from a case count from week to week, from 2857 down to 2019. So that's at the state, the county level that's reported to the state. The incident rate incident rate per 100,000. Remember, our target here is 100. To get out of the substantial category for the county, our target is 100. So last week we went from 273 to 228, and then this week from last Friday to this Friday, 234 to 166. So down about 70 points. Is there a case rate of 70 per 100,000? So again, the target's 100, definitely moving in the right direction. The PCR percentage positivity rate, the target's 10%. So last week I reported to you that we went from 11.5 down to 9.3. So we actually met the target and actually were below the target. Great news. That continued to move in the right direction over this past week, from 9.4 to 7.8. Remember, the target was 10%. The county numbers that I'm seeing right now are the best for any county in southwestern Pennsylvania. So I looked at Washington, Greene, Fayette, Westmoreland, Butler, Beaver, basically every county that touches Allegheny County. And our numbers are better in case counts, they're better in percentages than any county that touches our border, even those that are much more rural than us. Moving in definitely the right direction. Later this afternoon, we will get the new updated numbers. I will include those in the notes of this video. Hopefully they continue to move in the right direction, because everything indicates they should. Remember, we need 2 weeks. So when we hit the 100 or less, 10% or less, we need 2 weeks of those numbers hitting those targets to move out of the stage that we're in. So we're in substantial. 2 weeks. We have to hit that target and hold it for 2 weeks, and then move out of substantial. I don't know if that's really going to make an impact on what we're doing for schooling, because we're already actually implementing a schooling plan that exceeds where the recommendation is of the state. At the substantial level, we should be implementing a hybrid program from elementary and a full remote program at the secondary. I believe that we're able to do what we're doing now in a safe manner, provided we focus on the things that are important that I've already talked about. An update on vaccines, just quickly. Educators, remember, they're in Group 1B. However, there have been a few folks who have already received vaccines as part of Group 1A, but that Group 1A was expanded with the age and then some other conditions. There is a vaccine clinic today at Baldwin High School. It's by appointment only. It's for Baldwin-Whitehall District employees that qualify under Group 1A. We have about 180 folks that are signed up with pre-existing appointments. So please, there's no walk-up. The reason I'm telling you this is that it's a great move. We have about 180 employees that will be able to get their vaccine, and that allows us to continue to maintain our efforts of staying open as we continue to move forward in all of these pieces and parts. Sports and masks, I'm done talking about that for now. So we're not even going to talk about sports and masks today. I want to move to questions, because there are some questions. I have that on my other computer. So first question around kindergarten, when will they go to full day? That will not be this year. So we're reevaluating and looking at where we may be for the fall. There's a couple questions about that. And so we are comfortable maintaining our efforts this year. We have great small numbers in classes. The attention given to children can be much higher, with a class of maybe 8 or potentially 10 children for half the day, compared to 20 or 25 for the full day. I realize that the timing is different, but when you talk about strategies for educational achievement, the things that you vary, you can vary the program, you can vary the teacher-student ratio, you can vary the time on task. So while kids are getting less time in the building, they're getting more time and more attention from the teacher, because there are simply less children around. during that time. And I'm seeing just great interaction between the teachers and the students. Buses are really packed at the time of pickup and drop off. And you're right. Is there a chance to get kindergarten kids on their own bus? We are so strapped on drivers. It's not a bus issue. We have vehicles sitting. We don't have certified drivers to put behind the wheel. And so we are taxed every single day. And I think it's important to remember, we drive to 4 schools within the Baldwin School District. We provide transportation by state code to any school for any child who lives in our borough or our district up to 10 miles outside of our border. That puts our buses to like 45 additional schools that we are required to provide transportation to. That puts our buses deep into the North Hills and even south in the south, close to Washington County, 10 miles outside of our borders. There are questions around, can I change my student from whatever they are now from remote to 4 days? And the answer is, at this point, you can log your request. We'll ask why, but that approval will be held unless there is space, or at least until the end of the third 9 weeks. I've addressed that there's just simply no space. Question around timing to return 5 days a week in person, because if folks want their children 5 days a week. Wednesday is a day of school. Wednesday is a day of school that children should be signing up for attendance. There are assignments, whether that's that teachers are doing things synchronously in the morning or just simply asynchronous assignments that are out there. But the great benefit of Wednesdays being a remote day is that we can have it provides our staff time to focus on the full remote learner as well. The system is to have a system built where at least we can be in 4 days a week requires some percentage of our students not to be in person. We have to continue to plan and provide that time for our educators to plan and provide the instruction for those students. And so at this point, there are not plans to move off of our 4-day model. If your child goes to school 4 days and they are sick one of those days, can we still submit the virtual attendance, and can they join the Google Meets and complete all of their work? If the child is scheduled to be in school and you're choosing to quarantine for whatever reason, you have to connect with the teacher more than just filling out the attendance, because they're obligated, and our obligation is, if they're supposed to be in person, it's a safety issue too. That if they're supposed to be in person, we want to make sure that we're connecting with that, and we're not losing track of any children. That we just can't make an assumption that they're going to connect virtually. There needs to be active contact with your teacher who takes the attendance. Failure to do that is a day of absence, even if they fill out the attendance form, even if they do all the work. They're supposed to be in school, so that active connection with the teacher has to happen, and that's been consistent from day one. Is there a plan for kindergarten to be full days again next year? We are continuing to evaluate that. We have not made any decisions. We're looking to see where we are this year, and then hopefully with vaccine rollout and a variety of other options or variables, we'll make plans about next year as we get closer or further along this spring. Question around bus assignments and seats on buses, having assigned seats on the bus. We have been challenged with that. I know the principals are really working with drivers about assigning seats, whether that's for the young children or maybe children who have special needs. So that is a school level issue, and they continue to work through that. Question about it being, again, possible to change our decision. I've talked with my son's teachers, and we have agreed that it's best for them to be in school 4 days a week. But we've already signed up for remote learning. I am sympathetic to that and really empathetic to that. And I do believe that in some cases, the in-person is better. For others, maybe the remote is better. But ultimately, it's based upon the space available. And we will do everything we can, but we cannot make commitments that we cannot do safely. There's a question around parking passes in the high school. I know that this week the high school has been pushing parking passes out, seniors and some juniors. So if you have any questions around parking passes, please direct those to the high school administration. There was a question about parent, maybe a comment that when they're picking their child up in the line, they could see in the classroom and from the car line, and there were a couple of children in the class that did not have their masks on. If that's acceptable. The challenge on that is that the mask exempt, there are medical reasons for children not to be wearing masks, and then there is a mask exempt portion of that order. So any requests for exemptions from mask wearing go through our Director of Student Services, Marissa Gallagher. We do have children that really have a hard time and can't wear masks. There's absolutely a difference between can't and won't. We have children that won't wear a mask properly. At some point, the in-person learning model for children that just don't wish to be compliant with the school rules will no longer be an option, whether that's the bus, as we've already talked about, or if that's the classroom. So our ability to stay open is to pay attention to these mitigation efforts. And if it's a can't, we can have a conversation around that, and we'll be asking for documentation around that. If it's a won't, that's a whole different conversation. Notifications. Will there be notifications about cases in a school to parents? And we don't think we get these anymore. Well, actually, you do. Where there are cases, in fact, I sent 3 of those out this week, 1 early week, 2 yesterday. So if you didn't get them, then your child is not or has not been around children that have been positive, or there's been not a concern about quarantine or close contact or even contact tracing in your child's classroom. But please know that we are in fact doing those. Right now, the numbers of cases in the buildings are less. They'd actually would even be in a better place if the communication was more timely. And actually, all the cases in the past week or week and a half have all been related to not receiving communication from what's happening outside of the district in a more timely manner. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be reporting those things to you because they wouldn't be concerns. They're concerned about around bus times. Please continue to use the MyStop app. Bus times have been revised. We're trying to make sure that buses can get to those stops at the appropriate time, at the scheduled time. But if you use the MyStop app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or your Apple Store, I don't know that Apple stuff, I'm the Droid guy. But if you download that app, regardless of the time that the bus is scheduled to be there, you can follow that bus in nearly real time, give or take a couple minutes. And especially when it's so cold out in the morning, that bus is running late, you can track that bus and then make sure that your child is out at the stop, not too early and definitely not too late. Just a couple more questions, just scanning through. Beginning of the school year, the date for the 21-22 school year. That will be on the board agenda for next Wednesday. It will not be approved next Wednesday, but what we plan on doing is pushing that out for the board to take a first look at it, and then push that to the parents, to the students for feedback over the course of the month. We'll approve that in March, but we will push that out in a rough draft form this upcoming Wednesday. I believe some questions about students misbehaving, not controlling their behaviors on the bus, that type of thing. We've addressed that already. Breakfast locations, we've addressed that already. Waiting list for the 4-day, for the fourth quarter, we've addressed that already. And then if you've not received any information for your 10th grader, please contact the school, because if those letters are out today or even yesterday, check your email, check your spam filter or any type of filter for your email system. But if you've been getting skyward messages and emails from me, even for the notice of this meeting, then that should be coming through to you. So if you didn't get one, please check with your school office. They do have the master list of everything. So I'll finish as I normally do, and I really want to impress upon these words. They're not just words; they are really critical actions for us to stay open. If you're sick, stay home. If someone in your household's testing or has tested positive, stay home. 6 feet of distancing, 15 minutes of time. Wear a face covering, and let's show grace to one another every day as we move forward together in this journey. Thank you.